I'm going to call the meeting to order. Today is Friday, February 14th, and the time is 10:41 a.m. A quorum is present. All board members are present. The meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting was posted as required by law. So are we going to go into the executive report, or do we want to jump to if there's any public comments first?
We can do that first.
Yeah. Anybody?
No one here?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. No public comments, and then we'll just, I'll hand it off to you, Chuck, to give an executive report.
All right. We have the 23-24 annual presentation that we're going to do on the TAPER report, Texas Academic Performance Report. This is something you would want to know, and the information we are happy to present to you about the performance of our districts. It is also required by law that we have this in a board meeting for the public to hear if they so choose. We also have documents, several documents we do not present here that are in the board notebook that are also published online as a report that the public has access to if they would so choose to look at those. So Dr. Fellers, come on up, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fellers for not only the presentation of the TAPER report, but also HB3 student outcome goals, the progress, and that is also required by law, as well as you want to know this information. So Dr. Fellers.
Thank you. This is our official TAPER from the 23-24 school year. These are all of the comparisons and overall performance trends for our districts, plural. This is both for TCPA and Premier. We'll start with Premier first, and then we will move on to Texas College Preparatory Academies. We'll finish with our House Bill 3 goals and our targeted improvement plans as a whole. Feel free to ask questions as we go, although they did only give me 20 minutes. So we will try to be as efficient as possible. I don't think we'll quite be 3 minutes, but we'll get there. Profile, please. This is the profile for both of our districts. You'll notice for Premier, we have an enrollment of 7,800 students that we serve across grades 7 through 12. 64% are in the ECO-DIS. We also have a very high rate of at-risk. That is because this district is dropout recovery. For TCPA, we had a total of 16,918 students last year, lower numbers of at-risk and ECO-DIS. Next, please. This is a look at our Premier high school performance on end of course exams. These are all graduation requirements. In the gray, you'll see the state average for the approaches, meets, and masters accountability categories. And the colored bars represent the Premier performance. You'll notice we're not that far behind the state, and these are all dropout recovery schools, and the state is all campuses across Texas. Next, please. This is our look from 23 to 24. We performed better in Algebra 1, which was a big push for us. We noticed a trend in English 1 and 2 where we need to do some more support. But all in all, we are very happy with the approaches and meets rates that our students are achieving at this time. Next, please. This is a look at our graduation profile over the last several years. The colored bars are the bars on the bottom represent Premier 4-year graduation rates. So this is how Texas measures graduation, not our federal 4-year graduation rate. So this does include our dropouts who have come back to school and graduated. You'll notice that the red line are the students that are labeled as economically disadvantaged. Our yellow is our emergent bilingual students, and the green are our special education students. You do see a spike in 2022. That was when they changed the methodology for calculating 4-year graduation rates. We've seen a little bit of that taper off, but we are continuing to see an increase in our total graduates for Premier High School. Next, please. This is a profile of our attendance rates, dropout rates, and CCMR versus the state averages. Our dropout rate is, our district are the solid lines, the state is the dashed lines. We naturally have a higher dropout rate than the state average due to the students that we serve. We have a lot of students that are a little more transient. We have noticed a decrease in our CCMR points. Do not let that discourage you. We are still actively pursuing CCMR. There was a change in how CCMR was measured, but also the things that accounted for those points. So we should see a rebound in the 2025 school year. Attendance has held steady. Yeah.
The state rate is for like students, meaning premier type students?
This is all
flat.
It's all students across the state. So it's not a direct comparison. Yeah, it's not a direct comparison. We do have some slides that I'm going to show you in just right now that do compare us to our dropout recovery peers. However, the CCMR and grad rates are compared to the state as a whole, which is not excluding those non-dropout recovery schools.
And while I'm thinking about it.
Absolutely.
I'll forget.
Yeah.
The comment on the needing work on the English side, that curriculum or that subject matter, is that due to the fact that there's also, if I saw the curve correctly, the bilingual student increase? Or is that unrelated to it, or could be?
They're always related. I won't give an absolute causation, but they're always connected. We have a lot of changes in our student population year to year. We have a lot of students that come in, go out, come back. So what we're trying to do with our campus improvement plans and also with our targeted improvement plans is address those very specific things. We want our campuses to take a deep look and make sure that they're addressing the right things to support quality instruction. That requires a lot for just the nature of the beast when it comes to these EOCs. English 1 is also a very difficult assessment. It includes an extended response that is a good portion of their grade. So we're doing a lot of work with campuses to encourage writing as a whole, which benefits them on 2 other tests as well. So we're addressing it systematically, but we also want to make sure that we are looking for those nuances. If it is our EB population that is struggling the most, how do we instructionally support them? Same with special education.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, next, please. So this is a look at our EOC performance in comparison to our peers. These are 2 other districts within the state of Texas that only operate dropout recovery schools. And then the dashed line that you see are those state averages for the approaches group. So what you notice is that for the all grades, all subjects, we're pretty on par with the state, which is great news for our students. But we're also outperforming those peers in every subject, which is fantastic. There's a natural increase on our number of passes with biology and U.S. history, but we're still working hard in our algebra and English 1 and 2 EOCs. Next, please. This is a look at the meets. It's naturally less. This is what the federal government is looking for as the meets grade level standard and above. You'll see we're still outperforming our peers significantly in many areas. Moving on to PCPA.
If I could interject.
Sure.
I said I'd only do it twice, right?
Right. So this is your first one. Got it?
So approaches is the standard that the state requires for students to say they passed the test.
Correct.
The meets is the requirement that they set with the feds, like Dr. Feller said. It's also, if you listen to the commissioner, when he's talking about passing, he's generally talking about meets. But it is confusing and it's difficult because the state legislature will not require students to hit meets. They only require approaches, even though the agency, the authorizer, really wants you to hit meets. It makes it very difficult, especially with premiers, because no one is sitting there saying, well, I passed, but I could have had 3 extra questions answered right to get to meets. Nobody cares. Okay. This is a challenge, especially with Premier. I would say it's a challenge with even college prep students, my own kids, because again, they're not sitting there. They want to know, what do I have to do for this one test I'm taking? Okay. And passing is approach. So we're showing you these as a part of taper. It is something that when you look at the school improvements we're going to talk about, it's something factored in. We are having conversations with TEA and the legislature about changing domain 3. Again, we'll get into that more, but it's going to be tied back to this meets. But I wanted to make sure y'all understood as board members, approaches versus meets. And then there's also masters, which I don't think we're showing today.
Correct.
So it's not true across all tests, but just think in terms of, okay, to get approaches, I have to get the equivalent of 50% of the 42% of the questions right. Okay, which, yes, that's crazy that it's that low. But to get to meets, I have to have 46% of them right. And to get masters, I have to have 52% of them right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for Premier? Great. Then we will move on to TCPA. So we talked a little bit about the profile. Obviously, our TCPA campuses, we serve grades K through 12. Each campus has different grade spans. They're all represented together here. This is a look at our reading performance on the 2024 Spring Star by grade level. The gray is, again, the state average for, this is the meets category. So for TCPA, we're going to look at meets first. At every grade level, we as a district are outperforming our state peers, which is great news. The colored lines that you see across the graph are our EcoDis numbers. The green is for the state and the orange is our in-district. So even our EcoDis are outperforming in most grade levels for reading. Next, please. This is math. You'll notice that the bars went down a little bit. This is a trend that was across the state. So we are concerning ourselves with ensuring that our students are receiving the best instruction that we can, while also being cognizant that this is a statewide concern. So you'll notice that we run a little closer to the state averages here. Our EcoDis students are still performing well, but we are supporting those students who are most at risk in order to increase these numbers. But to Mr. Cook's point, the meets is really the gold standard for the federal Department of Education. We do want them to be at that grade level standard, but the requirement is approaches. This is a reach goal, if you will.
It's interesting, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
that from 7th grade, you go from being ahead of the state, but then in 8th grade, it's below.
This is a very nuanced observation. That is accurate. And our district is slightly unique in that we have half that take 8th grade math and we have half of our 8th graders taking Algebra 1. So it's a little bit of a
More than the
divergence.
state average.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So good observation. Yes. So we have 7th graders and we have some 7th graders who are taking 8th grade math. So there's also just a little bit of fluctuation for those instructional years. Next, please. This is our science and social studies. Our 5th and 8th grade science have been a specific topic of interest, especially within some of our brands because we have lagged before. So we're excited to see the progress that they're going to make in this upcoming year. Biology and U.S. history we have phenomenal performance. So great job to those students. Thank you. This is a comparison of our within district brands. So each of our brands is represented here. Our virtual campus, this is only our TCPA students. This does not include our PHS online students. So you'll see that we have some pretty consistent performance across the brands. We have a few areas that we are pushing into to support those students. Our Ignite brand does have our highest rate of EcoDis and our highest at-risk rate. So those campuses look a little bit different on some of our overall performances. The dashed lines that you see are the state comparison. With our approaches, we outperform the state more often than not. Same thing with the meets and masters in some occasions. That was the all grades, all subjects. I apologize. I should have mentioned that. So this is the 3 through 8 reading. Versus our state averages, you'll see that we are experiencing a lot of success in our English language arts assessments, and that is great news for many of our students. We have mostly recovered our COVID learning loss in our ELAR areas. We're still supporting some students who are experiencing some lags, but for the most part, we feel confident that we're back on track with those areas of instruction. The next is our math. Similar to the state, we are still experiencing some lag behind English language arts, but also still recovering from some of that learning loss. So we are trying to, again, from a data-driven perspective, impact the instruction, impact those systems that support performance across those grades and subjects within our brands. Yes, all science would be great. Thank you. This is our science. Again, with our state averages, we are typically outperforming the state. We have some areas, again, with our Ignite brand where we are pushing in. We're giving a little bit more support in those areas. And then for social studies, Similar performance across the board. For NSI, we have a very small representation. That's only 2 schools. And so we just don't have as many students, and that's why the bar chart looks a little funny. Okay, and our graduation profile for TCPA. High rates across the board. We've seen a very large increase in the last 5 years. We also have many schools who have just now introduced their senior classes, so we're continuing to see those numbers rise, but also become a little bit more consistent across the years. Again, you'll see represented our subgroups of EcoDis, emergent bilingual, and special education students, whose rates are also still very high, and we are very proud of those numbers. Attendance and dropout for TCPA, we run very similar to the state. Not a lot of shocking news there. You will see that our TCPA CCMR numbers are higher than the state average. Many of our students are earning their CCMR points through accelerated testing, SATs, ACTs, et cetera. So that's a great accomplishment for those campuses. Finally, I'm going to show you some comparisons to our charter peers. So again, this is looking at TAPER. So TEA put out an analytic tool along with the TAPER reports, and it allows us to take a picture of who we are within our group of friends. So you'll see the performance of TCPA is in the bright blue bar. Great Hearts is another classical style model of school. Harmony is a large charter peer. IDEA and IL Texas and KIP are a little bit closer to our Ignite brand. And this looks at the all grades, all subjects, and then ELAR and math specifically at the approaches. You'll notice we're pretty neck and neck with many of them and ahead of the bar for both KIP and IL Texas. This is our meets. The bars get shorter, which is natural. Again, we're staying pretty on track with our peers and outperforming IL Texas and IDEA specifically.
But it does show that math is still lagging for on both of those.
It is, and it's something that we're actively addressing. We see it in some campuses. They've found the solution. We're seeing back to normal trends. Other campuses, we're still really looking into the instruction. We're making sure that their practice and their intervention is efficient and effective. That way we can impact those scores. This is for our Ignite brand. Like I mentioned, they have a much higher rate of economically disadvantaged and at-risk students. So we wanted to look at their charter peers specifically. So IDEA, KIP, and IL Texas have similar rates of both EcoDis and at-risk. So that's what you see here is the comparison for those students on the all grades, all subjects, the ELA and math. And then this is for those students, which I think for Ignite, it's I think 86% EcoDis. I'm going to have to look at that number. Don't quote me. You'll notice that the district EcoDis is for all grades, all subjects as well. So again, very consistent with performance. We are seeing the lessening of math across the board. So our peers are experiencing that same lower performance than reading overall in our 2024 spring outcomes. In the meets, again, we are consistently performing with our peers. Math and meets are both harder to come by, so we're actively pursuing methods to ensure quality instruction as well as increased performance in those areas. Any questions for TCPA academic performance? Great. Excellent. These are our HB3 goals. We have one in TCPA. We have third grade literacy and third grade math, as well as CCMR. So in this chart, you'll notice that we had goals for 5 years. These were set up during 2020 and expanded to 2024. The number in parentheses under 2024 is the performance in CCMR for all students for the class of 2024. We hit that target, so great job. And then you'll notice that these subgroups are represented there on the bottom. Anything that's listed as NA is because we either do not have any students in that subgroup or we have too few students to report. For early childhood math, our goal for 2024 was 60% at the meets category. We did not meet that goal. We are in the process of addressing that specifically through targeted improvement plans as well as campus improvement plans. For third grade literacy, what you will notice on math is you see in 21, this was after COVID or beginning of COVID,
You see the 28%. The goal was 52. These goals were set pre-COVID. You can see in 21, 28% of our third graders performed at the meets level. You can see in 22, it went up to 38%, and you can see in 24, it's 42%. So you still see growth after COVID, but no, we did not hit the goal that was again set before COVID happened.
Correct. I will also note that in 2023, the STAR assessment was changed. It's no longer 100% multiple choice. It's now only 75%. The remaining 25% are what they are calling dynamic items, meaning that they are fill in the blank or graphing or two-part questions. It is intended to be more reflective of how students are learning in the classroom. It's definitely a curve for how we instruct students to perform on these assessments and how they interact with the test itself. So that's still shaking out in our 2024 scores. And I apologize, the first chart that we looked at, the first table, was for our literacy goal. And that's the target at meets that we did not achieve. So again, we are still actively pursuing, or we outstripped the goal. So we're actively pursuing what are the things that we do really well in reading that we can replicate in math. The third table here for TCPA is our CCMR. We had hoped for a 100%, and while 85% is still great, we are looking to improve. So we are encouraging students with dual credit, with all sorts of other CCMR opportunities within our district. For Premier, we do not have third grade math or literacy, so we're only looking at CCMR. Our goal for 2024 was 100%, and potentially, where's Tyra? It's the one, I know, but it only says 100%. It's okay. So again, we're increasing. We are not at 100%. We are, again, encouraging our Premier students to engage with our CCMR team to earn those points in any way, meaningful way that they can, including leveraging dual credit, leveraging our industry-based certifications. There was a change. We saw a big jump, obviously, from 21 to 22. We had a lot of students earn an IBC through a program that's no longer available. So we are actively engaged in other IBC opportunities for those students. Any questions for House Bill 3? Perfect. Finally, want to talk about our targeted improvement plans. We mentioned these a couple of times. All campuses are required to have an improvement plan at the beginning of the year. We worked really hard to build capacity with each campus leader about using data-driven decision-making in order for those plans to be impactful and have high leverage strategies and focused on those areas that are their highest concerns. We also have campuses that are identified officially through TEA for school improvement. For each of those campuses, they have what TEA calls a targeted improvement plan, because it's important to change the acronym. And so each of those campuses is identified through Domain 3. Mr. Cook mentioned that earlier. That is the part of our accountability structure that is directly related to the federal requirements through the Department of Education. Each of those plans addresses the highest need area. So if that's graduation within our premiers, that's specifically what their plan is focused on. If it's low performance on a subject or grade level, that's how their plans are set up. We do make sure that the TEA plans match their campus plans. We don't want them to do double work. So we always ensure that those two things are aligned. Our school improvement campuses also have a TEA visit, and the findings from that visit are incorporated into those plans. As an academic team, we monitor these plans pretty closely, especially those campuses that are the priority of school improvement. I have our DCSI here, Tyra, who visits these campuses frequently to ensure that they are engaged with their plan, that they know what they're doing, that their strategies are effective and efficient, and that we can see those outcomes as quickly as possible. If you do want details on those plans, they are in your board folder for review. It'll, again, walk through the areas that are their highest need and then the strategies that campus is engaged in to address that need. And that is me. And I hope that was 20 minutes. Fantastic. Any questions? That was a lot. Okay.
Good job. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions? Comments? Good work. Thanks for the presentation. Thank you, Tyra, for your work. Appreciate you.
So do you want to consider board members
Yes, sir.
This is for the Heritage team coming over.
This is for two Heritage Board members, Delilah Lopez and Rick, am I going to say your name wrong? Fingler?
Correct.
Fingler
Yes. So Robert's given up any duty for the board.
on the board of Responsive Ed. He's on the board of Heritage.
Yes, so he'll stay on that board.
He'll stay on Heritage
Okay.
Board. And Delilah and Rick will stay on the Heritage Board. And if y'all as a board agree, we will add them to the Responsive Ed Board. And
Very
you
good.
have their resumes in your board notebook.
So Delilah's not here, but we have the information, so I don't object to voting her on without her being here, so. Okay, do I hear a motion to bring Delilah and Rick onto the board of Responsive Ed Texas?
Yeah, motion made.
I'll second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, the motion passes unanimously. Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Rick.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the invitation. I look forward to providing whatever valuable insight and support to help our students be successful.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, so we're gonna just go to consent items. Under E of the agenda goes through 9 consent items. Any changes there?
There are no changes. We're asking you to approve items 1 through 9 as consent items.
Do I hear a motion to approve items 1 through 9?
I will make the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? Consent items passed unanimously. The motion to approve passes unanimously. All right, so we're going to move to separate items.
We're going to have Lynn come up and talk about just one item, which is the exciting news about the sale of our Round Rock property. Very exciting news. So Lynn, will turn it over to you.
Board, I'm Lynn Tompkins. I'm the Vice President of Construction and Real Estate for Responsive Ed. And Robert told me I had an hour and 15 minutes, so just kidding. It's my pleasure to inform the board that we purchased some property in Round Rock in September of 2019. We purchased 29.68 acres for $3,150,000. Which was about $2.44 a square foot. We had a contract to purchase it back in August of 2023, and I think the board voted to approve that. But in October of 2023, the deal fell through due to the buyer not being able to obtain financing. And that deal was for $9 million. After that deal fell through, some zoning work had started, and my team continued to work on the rezoning. And we were successful in rezoning that from a business park to light industrial. And that's a higher use and added value to the property. So in May of 2024, we received another contract from Zydeco Development. That sale price was $10.5 million. Which is $8.12 per square foot. Unique things about the deal is that the buyer paid all commissions, all closing costs, title costs. So the seller, us, out of our $10,500,000, we only had to pay $3,905 in closing. So the net proceeds to Responsive Ed were $10,496,000 of that 10.5. So we netted quite a lot, not having to pay closing and commissions. So the profit straight up was $7,350,000. We did have some costs associated with this, which were architectural, civil, and some rezoning costs of $1.1 million. So our net profit would be $6,223,633.
Great.
And so that deal is going to close? Is it done or it's
Closed, right?
The deal is closed. We have the money.
So you had approved selling it in October, and we're bringing it back to you with an update. We sold it to a different different company and giving you this data.
No vote, right? Or do we need to vote because it's done?
I would still,
Acknowledge it?
I would ratify it.
Rather, okay. Okay. It's good news.
Thank you, Lynn.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to ratify the sale of the property in Round Rock that was just discussed. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Great. Anything else to come before the board before we go into closed session?
No, sir.
Okay. Pursuant to section 551.076 of the Texas Government Code, we are authorized to go into closed session. No votes will be taken until we reconvene in open session. That is if votes are necessary. And we are recording. Yep. So we're coming out of closed session. There are no votes to be taken. So at this time, unless there's any other business to be brought before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.